I'm not exactly sure where you're at on your personal screenwriting journey. Maybe you're just starting out. Maybe you've got a few scripts in your pocket. Maybe you've got some scripts that you think are industry ready and it's finally your time. So what I want to do is, in very broad swings, walk through the process of becoming a screenwriter who has the skills and the craft know-how to get into the room. And why this will be helpful is you will hopefully be able to accurately identify where you're at on the journey. And you'll be able to see what are some skills or things to consider to help you move to the next level. That way, you can begin moving a little faster towards screenwriting mastery and finding the success that you're hoping to find. I don't like giving caveats, but I need to give two here just to reduce some confusion. There is no one way to follow, no singular path to walk to find success as a screenwriter. Everyone has different opportunities. Everyone starts with a different set of basic skills. Some go to film school, some don't. It's not a magic pill if you do, but there is no one way to do it. And you can forge your own unique path, but keep in mind that there are some constants that overlap everyone's unique journey, and those are the things that I'm talking about here. The second caveat, some writers write one or two scripts and they've managed to develop and execute with some skill a screenplay that gets them started on their career. But this is very rare. Now you hear about it, but you hear about probably all the ones that it happens to. Most screenwriters take 10 to 15 years to hone their craft and their voice and to have enough completed scripts that are competent enough to consistently get them in the door. And if that's you, I feel you, because this was me. But you can get there. It takes time, it takes work, and there's a couple of shortcuts. They're not really shortcuts, they're just things that accelerate your growth as a screenwriter. You still have to do the work. So when it comes to the screenwriting journey, there are basically 4 buckets: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and mastery. And then there's the getting paid bucket, but we're not going to talk about that because it's kind of self-explanatory. And you'll do better and grow faster if you can accurately decipher where you're at. In fact, as we go through, once you know what level you are, drop that in the comments. I'd love to know. And it's okay to be exactly right where you're at. You aren't racing against anyone. In fact, the biggest obstacle you have to being a screenwriter is you. So don't be ashamed or embarrassed by where you're at. Anyone who is further along in the journey has been where you are right now, and it's a fine spot. And we help each other succeed. But the best way for you to begin doing that is to be honest with where you're at on your own screenwriting journey. So let's start with beginning screenwriters. If you've never finished an entire script, either a full-length screenplay or an original TV pilot, you're a beginning beginner. And welcome to the merry band of screenwriters. Everyone on their screenwriting journey has stared at their very first blank page, so welcome. And just because maybe you finished a script or 2 or 3, you may still actually land in the beginner zone. You might have even read a book or 2 or 10 about screenwriting, but you still may be in the beginner bucket. And I've talked to literally hundreds of new screenwriters, and here's the thing that differentiates beginning screenwriters from intermediate ones. Beginning screenwriters want to know how to write the screenplay they're currently working on. Intermediate screenwriters want to learn what they need to know to write any screenplay. So a beginning writer is trucking along in their script, and they come to a scene, and this one is someone talking on a phone, and they think, I don't really know how to do that. I need to find out. And they go and find out, and they solve that problem, and cool, problem solved, and they keep writing. But now they come to a scene that's set in a car. Well, how do I write that? They go find out, problem solved, and they keep writing, and eventually they have a complete screenplay. Now that doesn't mean that the story is good, it doesn't mean that the storytelling is working, but it doesn't matter. They finished a screenplay, that one idea that is awesome that they love, and that's great. And there should be much celebration for any finished script. A lot of people have a great idea for a movie, but few have the discipline to sit down and write it. But you did, and that's fantastic. And one thing that's critical to beginning screenwriters is learning to have the right mindset to write. Having your head in a good mental space where you can effectively sit down to write, that's great. And you need to crack that nut at some point, and your attitude can get you a ways down the road. And something else you're doing as a beginner is you're devouring information about screenwriting because it is fascinating. you really like theoretical and philosophical things, because even though you're not really learning, they're helping you begin to understand that there's more to the tools of screenwriting than you originally thought. You're starting to see behind the curtain, all the stuff that goes on, with all the hand waving. You're starting to understand and see, oh, here's what they're doing. And you don't really know how to apply those concepts, but you're learning about them, which is incredibly important. And it'll be really important when you get to the intermediate level. But right now, you're just getting familiar with the concepts. What do the terms mean? Where do I start? Should I get software? If so, which one? And all of those are great beginner questions, and you should be asking them. Right now, you're a sponge, so just soak it up. So you finished a script and you're learning about the craft, but the question is, can you do it again? Can you write another screenplay? And if you want to find success as a screenwriter, being a one-hit wonder is not the way to do it. You have to be able to replicate the act of writing. And so you write another screenplay, and maybe you run across something you need to do, but that didn't happen in the last story. Well, this one has a fight scene, and how do I write that? You go and figure it out, problem solved, and you keep writing. And for beginning writers, this process repeats itself. Writing, solving problems, being a sponge. Writing, solving problems, being a sponge. Until this light bulb goes off and you settle hard into the thought of, I don't need to know how to write one screenplay. I need to know how to write any screenplay. I need to figure that out. And that's when the beginning screenwriter becomes an intermediate screenwriter. Intermediates are concerned with learning the craft, not just learning about the craft, which is what beginners do. And there's a big difference there. A beginner learns about the craft. They learn about how others do the craft. They learn about the basic tools and the required mindset. But an intermediate writer wants to know how the engine works, not just what are the pieces that are there. They want to know how to take it apart and put it back together. They want to know what makes stories tick and why they work, and how to identify with the ones that aren't working. And so they might even press pause on actual writing screenplays and focus on learning the tools of the trade, practicing writing dialogue or scenes without dialogue, or how to build a character arc, or a host of other things, because they want to fill their writing toolbox with all the tools, and they want to know how each of those tools work. And that's because the intermediate writer is done trying to fly by the seat of their pants. They start learning the process of how to write a script like a professional would, especially if they want to be a professional writer someday. And they do these things because they know that if they can learn the tools, if they can learn how stories work, and if they can begin to learn how the process of writing a screenplay in a professional manner works, they know they will be on their way toward being an advanced writer and eventually a master screenwriter who can, in fact, write any story. So the intermediate is focused on learning the tools, the tricks of the trade, how stories work, and a bit about how the process works. But when they've learned the tools and they're ready to jump back into scripting because they've learned a bit about the process of writing, this is when a writer moves to the advanced level. Advanced writers know how stories work. Okay, they know that. They can easily identify act breaks and inciting incidents and story sequences, flawed character arcs, all of it. But now they lack one key thing: how to optimize the writing process for them, while at the same time doing it in a professional manner. And so they begin to experiment with different types of story planning. Maybe they write a treatment or an outline or use note cards or screenplay software that has planning tools, and they figure out how long it takes them to write any first draft of a screenplay. They begin to hone their revision process, so they aren't making 14 revisions or more on a script. They eventually get it down to where they're only making 2 or 3 at most, and they have a solid script at that point that they can show anyone. In short, the advanced writer is focused on learning and honing their process for generating a compelling story, from idea to polished draft, in about 3 to 5 months. They want to work through that process in about 3 to 5 months. Now, it depends on the amount of free time they have, but they do this because they know that professional writers rarely have longer than 12 weeks to go through the process. So if they can hone their process to that tight of a window, even with doing all the other stuff, they know they're ready to move into that next level, because they know they now have the mindset and mental acuity to write, which they learned as a beginner. They have the knowledge of the tools they need, which they learned as an intermediate, and they now have honed the process. So to become a master screenwriter, there's really only one last big hurdle to know: marketing. Advanced screenwriters know how to market themselves first. They know how to carry themselves. They know how to get their script to people who'd want to read it, even if they don't have a personal connection or easy way to get it to them. And this is an incredibly important skill, because if you can't convince them that you have what it takes, they won't hire you or buy any script of yours. But the master writer also knows that their spec screenplay has little chance of getting made. It'd be great if it did, but it's not likely, at least not yet. However, if they write a great calling card script or two that showcase their abilities as a screenwriter, and that script is a highly marketable idea, they have a shot at getting in the room. So a master screenwriter knows what a good idea is and what isn't. They know a marketable idea when they have one, and they now have the skills and knowledge to pull it off. And once you're a master screenwriter and you're putting yourself out there and making your own luck, it's only a matter of time before you move to that final level: being a paid screenwriter. But one sold or optioned screenplay does not make a career, and master screenwriters know this, and so they work to stay in that paid level by repeating what they know, by getting in the room, by harping their wares to the right people, and then they become a known entity that others want to work with. So that's the process. But before we're done, I want to mention a few other resources that can help you speed up your journey towards screenwriting mastery. Some are mine, some are others. No one else is paying me to mention their things. I haven't taken advantage of everything I'm going to mention, so do some due diligence if money is involved. But here's the catch: money is always involved if you want the fast pass. Otherwise, it's going to cost you time. So it's going to cost you time or money. So you can pay some money, or it's going to cost you time. Again, 10 to 15 years is the average. Some do it faster on their own. Others do take longer. If you're a beginning writer, you may have discovered some other YouTube channels, Film Courage and Tyler Mowry. And Film Courage has a lot of stuff about how people in the industry have done things. They interview writers and producers and directors and others to talk about the process, and it's a great way to get your feet wet and learn about the industry. Tyler Mowry, who has a YouTube channel, has content geared mostly to beginning writers. He talks a lot about philosophies of screenwriting and about the stuff going on, and he even has an online course about the screenwriting mindset. These are all some things that you need at a beginner level. So if you're having trouble getting the wheels moving, maybe check out those resources. My channel, this one, Big Red Stripe, is focused more on intermediate writers. I do have some videos about beginning things. I have a few about advanced things because intermediate writers are kind of bridging both worlds a little bit, but most are in the intermediate bucket. I have stuff to help you learn how stories work, how the pieces work, what the story tools and the storytelling tools are at your disposal. I also have a book linked below that's a primer on story structure and how stories work. I'm actually actively working on an expansion of that book, which I hope to have available in a few months. I'll be sure to let you know about that when it's out. But that book is meant to be an introduction to the intermediate level. And those of you who've wanted to know how stories work have gotten it. And if you want to know how stories work, you should go get it. I also have the Screenwriting Fast Track course, which is, again, for intermediate writers. It breaks down all of the tools using examples from movies. There's homework because intermediate writers want to practice to learn how to use the tools. It's kind of like a crash course of screenwriting film school class, all in one online class. And there's different tiers of participation that unlock additional resources. So if you're an intermediate writer and you want to move a little faster, you should definitely check out the Fast Track. It will help you move through the intermediate level way faster than you could on your own. And if you're ready to move from an intermediate writer to an advanced writer, that's where the Screenplay Navigator comes in. The focus of that coaching program is on helping you hone your process and apply the skills you've learned. There are group calls twice a month. I read your stuff, I give you notes, we talk about your stories as a group, and the goal is to move you into screenwriting mastery. And if you're at that point and still want some help with the marketing part, you may have stumbled upon Scriptfellow's YouTube channel. Dominic has a lot of things, and he focuses on helping people cross that last hurdle and giving them some of the marketing skills they need. He also has some great videos on pitching and query letters and things like that. So if you're an advanced writer trying to make that last move, you're not in the Navigator, you might want to check out some of Dominic's stuff. So if you're an intermediate writer, check out the book on story structure and the Screenwriting Fast Track. If you're wanting to move from intermediate to advanced, check out the Navigator and book a call with me where we can talk about it. I just want to make sure that you're ready for the advanced level of screenwriting. And links for all of those things are below. But if you're like, Jake, that sounds great, but I'm just gonna keep learning for free and doing the YouTube thing, that's totally cool. And in that case, you should watch this. If you found value, don't forget about all the fun buttons and other links below. Be sure to drop in the comments what level you're at, and when you tell a story that matters. See you later.